Bonjour everyone, in today's video I'll be showing you how to create a dotless raglan sleeve and bodice. I will be showing you two different ways of doing so, one with the arm side lowered and the other one with the arm side as is. And I have my front and back bodice here. I have my sleeve, that is my set-in sleeve. So I'll get started with the one where I lower the arm side because that's my preferred one. And I am going to mark a 1.5 inch point on the side seam of my front pattern starting from the underarm point. So I'm going to do the same thing for the back as well. Mark 1.5 inch point starting from the underarm at the side seam. I will be doing the same thing for my sleeve as well. On both sides of my sleeve, I'm going to mark the same measurement from the underarm point. And I'm using 1.5 inch because that's what I saw in Helen Joseph Armstrong's book, Pattern Making for Fashion Design. And that's what she uses for her raglan sleeve pattern. Even though hers is not dotless, I decided to just use the same for the dotless sleeve where I lower the arm side. And I don't know if this measurement can go lower or higher, but I would just keep it as is because this is just pattern manipulation. Once your bodice is made to your measurement, I feel like it's okay to use standard measurement if your bodice is made to your measurement, not a standard one. And so what I'm doing here is connecting my notch point to the point that I marked with my curve ruler. And I'm going to do the same thing at the back as well. From my notches, draw a line with my curve ruler to the point that I place on my pattern piece. I will be doing the same thing with my sleeve as well, starting from the notches to the point that I placed. And then I will be cutting that off. And you know how with our patterns for the back we have two notches, for the front we have one. So for my sleeve with the notches, I use the top one to draw my curve because I get the smoothest curve that way. Whatever works for you, you do that. You just need to start off with smooth curves, in my opinion, for raglan sleeve because you do end up creating more curves. So from the beginning, you just want to start with that. So now my pieces are cut off. I am going to now give my sleeve a lift. If you've seen my previous video where I added a built-in gusset to a sleeve, that is the same thing I'm going to do here with this sleeve. It's just a sleeve with a lower arm side or armhole. So I'm just going to give my sleeve a lift, a 2 inch lift. Because I already have a video explaining how to do this, how to add a lift to your sleeve or built-in gusset, I am just going to speak over this as it plays. So I want to say that in the Helen Joseph Armstrong's book, she does add the lift after she creates the raglan design. Although hers is not a dotless raglan, I think it's best to create your lift before you create your design. That way you just have your new sleeve with your lift and create your design and you're done. Versus creating your design, cutting through it, adding the lift, and then putting that on a different piece of paper. I think the with the lift, it is better to have the lift beforehand and then work from there. And another thing I want to emphasize the importance of having a lift, especially when you're doing a dotless raglan sleeve, because the way the dotless raglan hangs around your body, it is not tailored to your shoulders or your armhole. It is something that is almost wrapped around your armhole. It is almost draped, so you do have wrinkles going on under your arm, under your armpit. And if you do not have a lift, with the way the raglan is designed, you are losing so much of your sleeve head if you are doing a regular bodice with a regular sleeve, that is. If you are using a bodice that is a dotless bodice with a lower sleeve head, a loose sleeve that has been extended where your bicep line is extended because your arm side has already been extended on your dotless bodice, then maybe you won't need to do so. But if you are just manipulating your regular bodice and turning it into a dotless raglan sleeve, you most definitely need to extend that to add a lift to it and add that excess because with a sleeve like this, you're losing so much of the sleeve head when you're creating the dotless raglan. At least half of your sleeve head will be gone. So imagine if you do not add any excess to your sleeve, when you put that garment, your wrinkles are going to be way too tight around your arm. Your armpit is going to be super uncomfortable. So you need that ease. Unless you're doing a knit garment, that's the only other exception where you wouldn't need to add a lift because the nature of the fabric is not going to be as uncomfortable as it would be for a woven fabric. So I'm using woven fabric for this, and I'm also using my regular sleeve, so I need that. And another reason to add a lift would be if you have broad shoulders. I think that's necessary, no question asked. So back to regular programming. As you see, I add some excess to my sleeve here at the sleeve bottom, the sleeve opening. I add about 3/8 of an inch on each side. It just looked good to me at the moment, so I just did that. But you don't have to do it. So now I'm showing you how to lay your pieces to create your raglan sleeve, how they are going to be laid out. You see the armhole points are touching each other from the bodies to the sleeve armhole point, and then the shoulders are connected together. So had that not had the lift, it would not have looked the same way. So that's something to take into consideration of why you would need a lift to make things easier. But now we're going to design our raglan design on the bodice. So I mark the middle of my neck. That's just where I want mine to start. And I put my curve ruler to the point where I mark in the middle of my neck. And I have it touching my armhole as smooth as possible so I can have a smooth S line, like a very subtle S. That's the design you're looking to have. So I don't have any specific measurement. I just do what gives me the smoothest curve possible. And so for my back, I'm doing the same thing. I am putting my curve ruler to my armhole in a way for it to move very smoothly when I trace my line. And I'm making sure the top of my ruler is not going to the curve of my neck, because the curve, it shows more on the side, and I want my design to show in the back as well. So I want my ruler to be on the back side, not the curve of the back neck. And so I just move my ruler where I think that would give me the best result. And you can see my curve is almost like a very subtle S line. And that's what I'm going for. Especially with the arm side being lowered, it's easy to get the design that way because you have more space to get that smooth curve from your ruler. And so now I am putting the layout as it should be, with the armholes touching, my body's armhole and my sleeve armhole touching. And you can see the amount of shoulder head that I am losing in the design. That is quite a bit. That is way more than my shoulder ease, my sleeve ease actually. If you saw my previous video on adjusting my sleeve cap, then you saw how much ease I had to remove to lower my sleeve cap. So I'm losing all of that sleeve head. And so that is why I'm grateful to have the lift. And right now I'm just putting pieces of tape down to keep my bodies down, to keep it from moving as I create my design on my sleeve. So for the bodies, the design is already set. That's where we're going to cut it at. And the sleeve is the thing that we really are trying to design using the lines of the bodies, using the design lines that's been placed on the bodies. So what I do is try to extend that design from the bodice where we placed it, to extend it to my armhole line on my sleeve that is there. You see the curve of my sleeve, so I try to extend that line as much as I can. So mine is currently extending from the crossback down onto my sleeve curve wherever it reaches. That's fine. I just needed to touch the sleeve curve, and then I smooth it out with my sleeve curve, with my curve ruler, with using my sleeve curve as well to smooth it out. So that's what I do. I try to extend the line onto the curve of my sleeve and then just smooth out the curve, because you need that curve to wrap around your arm. And so that's why that curve needs to be inward. And I'm going to do the same thing for the front. That's after marking my notches at the back. We need 2 notches for the back. So I'm extending my line as smooth as possible from the bodice, the design line that's on the bodice. I try to extend it as smooth as possible from the top and bring it to the curve of my sleeve. Wherever it reaches, I just need it to come to the curve of the sleeve. And then I'm smoothing out my curve now, creating a new sleeve curve using that line that I just brought down. And so that's my design. Pretty much everything is complete. It is done. And yeah, you can see with my cross front line and cross front back, the design is really coming from there. I didn't want it to start too far up. I want my line to be to come as far as possible from the neck down. I want it to stay one as possible from where I just extended. And that's all. I trace over my neck and I'm done. Right now, what I'm doing is using my tracing wheel to trace over my design. Instead of me cutting the design and attach it to the sleeve, I'm just tracing over the design line and I will cut afterwards. But I prefer to do things that way, trace over it and then go over the line that it leaves underneath with my pen and then be done from there. That's pretty much it for the sleeve. Everything is completed. I'm just tracing over my design line so I can go over it with my pen and be done. And now that I'm done tracing with my tracing wheel, I'm just gonna use my pen to go over the marks that my tracing wheel left, and I will be done with my sleeve design. Next, I will cut off the excess from my bodice, and everything is done pretty much for my design. So the raglan design, the dotless one specifically, it's not so difficult. You just need to know what you're aiming to get, the result you're aiming to get, and the steps that will help you to get the best results possible. So we already know it's dotless, so it's gonna be wrinkly or under the arm because it's not tailored to the body. It's more so it's more draped around the body, so you just need to know what you have to do to get the best results possible. And like I said, having the lift helps to have that excess fabric so that your wrinkles are not so tight around your armpit, and you have some sort of you have the excess fabric that allows things to be loose and be more comfortable around your body. And if you have any question, comment below. Let me know. I will do my best to answer your questions. So we're moving on to the next one now. That is a dotless sleeve with my regular sleeve lifted, my regular arm side. So this sleeve I created in my recent video where I showed you how to add a built-in gusset. And that is the sleeve that I am just finishing off. I copied that pattern onto a new piece of paper, and that's what I'm going to work with. All right, so let me show you how things are going to lay out on my sleeve. That is my regular sleeve with a lift. So this is, we put the armhole points together, and because it doesn't meet at the shoulder line, so I tilt my shoulder line so that they can meet at the neck point, as you see up top. And you see how much ease I will lose even if they were not tilted, it would still be a lot. So this is what things would look like if I use my regular sleeve without a lift. You would see that they would meet at the shoulder line. But look at how much I would be losing. And so when I put that around my arm, that would make for a very tight fit, a super tight fit, using my regular sleeve with my regular bodice block. And I have broad shoulders, so that is why it's best for me to use the lifted sleeve with the built-in gusset. So now I'm going to create my design before I go ahead and place my pieces down. I mark the midpoint of my neck and I'm taking my ruler, the straight edge of my ruler, and aligning that from the point that I mark to the tip of my armhole on the arm, as you see here on my front bodice, and I trace a line on the bodies from when I have them aligned. And now I am going to draw a perpendicular line from that line that I just drew. At the armhole point, I am drawing a perpendicular line, and that's going to measure 3/4 of an inch. And once I mark that, now I'm going to draw a curve starting from my underarm point, taking my curve from the underarm to that point. I am not trying to talk about the tip, but the whole curve of the underarm to meet at that point. Bring it with my curve ruler. And now I'm going to finish drawing my S. Raglan designs are more like an S shape on the actual bodice itself. And so I'm drawing the other part of my curve. You have a convex and concave curve. And so as you can see, I make sure my line that I initially drew, I extend that as much as I can and get it to be smooth. And now I'm just smoothing things out where that line, that S curve met the other one that's at the bottom. Just smooth things out, and my design is done for the front. Now moving on to the back, I am going to do the same thing. I just mark the midpoint of my neck there. No specific measurement. I know you don't go to the curve, because if you do, the curve is mainly gonna show on the side of your body, and you want your design to show at the back. So I go to the middle of the back and I do the same thing I did in the front. The point align with my armhole tip on the arm tip and draw a line. And now I'm doing a perpendicular line that is 3/4 of an inch. And I guess this could have been less being that it is the back, but I used 3/4 of an inch as well. And I drew a curve to that 3/4 of an inch. And I extend that curve because it is my back. I am going to draw a longer curve, and I'm doing the S curve again. It's just a subtle S. So I am trying to do it in a way where I extend my initial line that I drew that align with my underarm tip. I try to do it in such a way that I extend that line and I just smooth it out to meet with the curve that I drew at the bottom. And now I have my design done for the front and the back. These S-curve designs are pretty much it for my bodice. That's what I'm going to cut on my bodice when I'm done creating the sleeve design. So nothing needs to be done on the bodice, just like the first one. So now I am aligning things just like I showed you previously. The armhole, underarm tip from the bodice touching at the sleeve underarm tip, and my neck tip, my neck points are touching at the bodice, and that's how I want things to be. So you can see my shoulder opening up. That gives me a bit of ease and make things more comfortable for me, instead of me having used my typical sleeve where that would be closed and I would not have that ease, that space. It would be a different kind of fit. So the next thing I'm doing here is extend that 3/4 of an inch that I marked. I am extending it to 1 inch towards the sleeve part. From that, from the bodice, I'm extending that to 1 inch. I'm doing the same thing at the back as well. I'm extending it to 1 inch. The reason I extended it to 1 inch was because I thought it would be the easiest way for me to explain things to you, but it really doesn't have to be. Like I'm showing you here, you just need your curve to go from the underarm point and to meet at the design line on the bodice. That's all you need to do. And where things meet, you're going to smooth that out. So I'm showing that with my pencil, how you can just draw a line with your curve ruler, a curved line, and then here I'm smoothing it out where they meet. That's really what you need to do. You simply need your underarm point to meet at the bodice design, and then just smooth things out where they meet. That is simply how you just, that's all you need to do with the design. This is big. I was not thinking about this. At first, I just was thinking of the easiest way for me to try to explain this to you, because this is me redoing my bodice, my pattern again, because the first time I filmed it, it was all sunny and all I could see were shadows while I was editing. So I had to redo my bodice, my design again. And that's in me redoing it that I'm thinking to say that to you. But initially, when I did things, I used the 1 inch and that's what I demoed. That's what I cut out. So I'm going to stick to that so you can see it here. But all you need is for your underarm point on your sleeve to meet at the design line on your bodice, and then where they meet, you just smooth things out. That's all you need to do. I don't think it matters the amount, how much distance it is between the curves. It never mattered to me until I'm doing this, and I just, at first I just thought that was the easiest way for me to try and explain things to you, but it doesn't have to be that way. You just need to know what you have to do and just do it the best way that you can. You're gonna get great results either way, as long as your curve is curved inward for your sleeve and the curve on your bodice is outward. That's all you need. It doesn't matter the distance in between them. In fact, the more fabric you have, the better, the easier, or the better it is for your underarm situation, your armpit situation afterwards. So because I had the 1 inch mark on my original design, which is the one I cut out of my pattern, that's why I'm sticking to that. But that's not, it doesn't have to be that way. All you need is for your underarm curve for your sleeve to meet at the bodice, and then you smooth things out where they meet. I simply just use the 1 inch, where my curve go from my underarm to touch at the 1 inch mark, and then I just smooth it out where they meet on the bodice. And I'm smoothing out my neck because there was an indentation there because of the way my body piece is um, laid out. And then I use my tracing wheel again, because that's just how I like to do things. I prefer to go over it with my tracing wheel and then cut it out. If you don't have tracing wheel and you want to do things that way, use your pins and just pin over the lines. You're gonna get the same thing. and then just use your pen and go over the lines that the tracing wheel leaves, and you're done pretty much. Literally, you're finished. That's all it is to the Dartless Raglan. Even the previous one, it was more so extending the line because the arm size is longer. And that's all. We're done with the bodice, with the design. All that's left to do is finishing it off, and then cutting it out, and that's it. And for these designs, I decided instead of just since I'm not using pillowcases this time, I'm using actual fabric, granted more casual fabric, and I decided I'll just extend the length of my garments to just make them garments that I can just wear around the home. And so instead of just this being me just demonstrating it, I try to make something real out of it. So I created facing, and I'm just showing you here how I went about creating my facing, because that's what I did when I first filmed this, which, like I said, the sun was just too bright and I had too much shadows going on, so I had to redo it. So I'm just redoing the facing here, but my actual facings that you will see is from when I originally cut it out. All right, so now I have all my pieces done, and to my left is my lower arm side, and my right is my regular arm side. And I cut everything out. As you can see from this part of filming, I still had some shadows, but not as bad as it was on the pattern making part. So this is for my lower arm side, and this is for my regular arm side. And as you can see, I extended my fabric past the waist line because I plan on keeping those to wear around the home and I did not want them to be cropped. So that's why I extended the fabric past the waistline. And so now I'm going to lay my pieces down so I can show you how I prepare them to sew. So at first I lay my back piece down and then my front piece is in front of it because I open my opening is at the front, and then I take my sleeves. The longest part of my sleeve is usually for the back, and so I will be attaching that to the back. Both sleeves I'll do that with, and then I will be adding my front pieces to the sleeves accordingly. And then I sew all of the seams on my sleeve attachment, and then I will be sewing my underarm and my side seam. And once I do that for both of them, then I went to attach my facings, and then this is what everything came out looking like. This is my lower arm side top, and this is my regular one, and here is the final result. I am not a fan of Dartless Raglan, but this was comfortable. The lower arm side one, that was the most comfortable one. I honestly don't know if it is supposed to have that much wrinkle because with the knit ones, they are not as wrinkly under the arm. So I think that's the part that makes me feel very insecure, like I did something wrong. So definitely leave your tips, suggestions, any help in the comment that could help me, because I feel like those give me the best results. No pattern that I have tried have given me results that were as comfortable as these. And even where I lower the arm side, I just decided to just do it that way because I just figured maybe that will give me better results. So I just tried that. And even with me adding lifts, I still feel like this one has a lot of wrinkles at the back. My goodness. I mean, I do know that my fabric for the sleeves, they are a bit bulky, not as flowy as the body um fabric, but still, that's, I don't know. I mean, it's still comfortable. I was able to lift my arms very high and move well enough, but I don't know. The wrinkles were just like, my Lord. I don't know. Well, we move on to better things. I will be sharing the next video on my dotted raglan design and the two piece as well. So see you next time.